From China to Rome, an essay on the ships and shipbuilding of classical Roman China by John Holwick. Abstract. I decided on this topic as it has extensive research and the history of Chinese and Roman ships are amazing. I looked through many sources and found some that I liked. I used those sources to write the essay, and from there I used a photo to make my artifact. Found many answers to my main question, and I have learned much about the form and function of a Roman shipbuilder and a Chinese shipbuilder. Essay. China and Rome had many different designs for carrying their religion, goods, people, or livestock across water, but in this essay we will be focusing on the differences between Chinese junks, a boat that was used as sailing ships between Indonesia and mainland China. I personally chose this project as I have always been a fan of shipbuilding and was interested in the profession of shipbuilding. In Rome, we have the trireme, a warship reverse engineered from the Carthaginians and Greeks by the Romans to make their own version of a very powerful sailing ship. The Chinese boat was designed mainly for operating under wind power, whilst the Romans utilized a design incorporating wind and human power through the use of paddles to propel their ships. The Chinese junks were more capable of withstanding rougher seas, while the Romans had a tough time keeping their ships from capsizing because of a certain weapon on board known as the corvus, which would imbalance the warship and capsize it in rough seas. The junks were built around a more rough ocean, whilst the trireme was meant for the Mediterranean Sea. Junks and triremes are entirely different ships in what they did and how they are designed, but both still have an astounding effect on modern history and even modern trade. The name trireme originates from the bireme, a similar vessel designed, but the trireme originated from Athens, where they designed the ship with 3 banks of oars to make the boat longer and faster in battle, leading to victories in battles such as the Battle of Actium. The trireme is regarded as the peak of Greek and Roman engineering across the Mediterranean Sea. The Romans had one more design up their sleeve, though. Due to the realization that warships are just floating platforms upon which their soldiers could fight upon, they designed the corvus, a weapon in front of their warships that would, when activated, drop like a drawbridge with a long spike on the end, and pretty much anchor the boat to the opposing ship, allowing soldiers to hop onto the other boat, allowing for basic ground combat to begin. Roman shipbuilders were not as intelligent as their modern counterparts, though. They were designing their ships on rules of thumb, using and stealing the designs of the Greeks and Carthaginians to make their designs. Originally, shipbuilders used to sew the hull planks together, but later the builders decided on a new design, using something known as the locked mortise and tenon method. In the end, they decided on building the frame first, then the hull and other components. This is still in use today. On the other hand, the Chinese junk was a smaller ship meant for trade and long-distance travel between Indonesia and China. The junk was famously known for the first boat to have a rudder on its back to steer, and as it was known in the ancient world for speed and maneuverability. While most modern junks are smaller to the ancient cousins, their cousins were over 400 feet long. Surprisingly, evidence of these ships traveling all the way to Africa was discovered due to coins being found in the eastern shores of Africa. Chinese junks were known to use bamboo rigging with curved sails to prevent rottage due to their strength and build material. Still to this day, Chinese junks are known to house families and have shrunk their size down to only 70 feet, even though the Chinese junk are still a common sight in Asian and Chinese harbors to this day. The trade that the Chinese junk was extensive, as these ships were used in the 15th century as treasure ships, transport ships, supply ships, and others. Zheng He was famous for taking his treasure ships on 7 voyages around the Indian and Pacific Oceans. These voyages contained over 300 vessels, most of which are junks, and over 28,000 men that were deployed on these 7 voyages to create proxy states to allow Ming China to collect tribute and spread its influence around the world. These voyages were successful in cementing Ming China as the superpower of the world, influencing the West and the East. Not only that, the Song dynasty was world-renowned for their shipbuilding talent. They invented the sounding line, which measured the depth of the water, and perfected the compass, which pioneered the exploration age, using its magnetic north to allow people to find their location. Not only that, the Song also pioneered watertight bulkheads for their ships, preventing flooding of the entire ship, but only relegating the flooding to certain parts of it. Overall, the Roman trireme and the Chinese junk were designs that were honed to what they needed. The trireme was a fast warship designed for ocean travel in the Mediterranean, and giving soldiers a platform in the ocean, whilst the Chinese junk was also used as a warship, but also as a maneuverable craft, able to travel through the rust of seas, also while putting classical China on the world map as a superpower of the Pacific and Indian Oceans. In the end, the trireme and the junk will be forever known as the ships that powered a golden age of exploration. From the Indian to the Atlantic, they will stay enshrined in the world of classical Rome and China forever, as the ships that powered not a generation, but a millennium of change that stretches to this day, putting effect on modern trade, politics, and family traditions that will last long after we are gone.